Hi, I'm Kimberly Adair Gagnon. I have been wanting to make this video for a while because it's all about reflecting on this one-to-one conferring process with students throughout this pandemic and remote learning in order to really get a sense of where kids are at in order to really plan for them and their needs and have families join in the conversation where necessary to support kids and to support families as they're navigating these unprecedented times and make sure learning continues, but that it doesn't become too big of a stress, I guess I would say, on families. And I really feel that as a parent myself, I really notice and recognize how difficult it is to be working full time and parenting and teaching and having some sense of some tiny bit of balance in your life. So I empathize with the parents who are working, and I empathize with the stress it potentially might have if people are ill or if people are working as frontline workers and having that extra stress or not working. Perhaps there's a lot of things going on in people's lives, and things are changing on the daily here, it seems. So one-to-one conferencing has been a huge support for me in being intentional and being able to support kids and be helpful and encouraging for families and for students and move learning forward. Because if we're at our brink and our stress level, our brain's not going to be doing any learning. And so my job is to bring that stress level down for kids and make things manageable and give them what they need. So here's what I have found. And as I've said before, I work as a team. I have a couple of amazing grade 7-8 teachers that work together with me, and we've been collaborating this whole time, and we've all been trying this approach. It's one of the things that we tried to do systematically, and we reflect on it every week when we meet, and we make new plans, and we adjust, and we give each other insights on each other's students, because of course there's some subjects where we teach one another's kids as well. So this is definitely not all me, and my colleagues have also noticed very similar things in regard to their one-to-ones. So first set of one-to-ones, we were having to get into the routine. And so that first set, some kids, of course, didn't check their calendar, didn't accept the invite, lots of things happened, didn't show up at the meeting. So there was lots of phone calls, lots of extra emails that week, and then a second set of meetings set up for some kids, which then they all attended after that, after doing a little bit of extra digging. And of course, some students were there right off the hop. First meeting revolved around how are you, and the well-being, mental, physical health of the students, how's the family coping, what's been happening in the house, kind of thing, like whatever students wanted to share, and making sure just everything was okay and everyone was doing well. And if everyone's well, then we move on to something else. If there's something going on in the home that the child is struggling with or student is struggling with, then it's maybe a conversation with the parents, and maybe we stay in that space until we ensure that students have the support that they need. Second, it was technology, and how's everything working with the technology. We are using Microsoft Platform in our school division, and as a grade 7-8 team, we've decided Microsoft Teams is going to be our platform for everything, so that students only have to learn one tool. And same as families, we're tech support for families as well as classroom teachers, supporting them with learning how to use these tools. And that's a huge part of our job in the beginning of this is what we noticed in that those first couple of weeks is what we really focused on, is learning the tools ourselves, students, helping families if they need help with finding things or how to use certain things or what have you. And that's still ongoing because there's new things introduced that then we're bringing forward. So then it becomes, we can't just expect that everyone will know how to use it right off the hop. It certainly takes some learning, and we need to have the patience and provide the time and space for that tech learning to happen. So that was a big one. Our school division has been amazing, Louis Riel School Division, and they're providing technology as much as possible for families and for kids, and Wi-Fi access and all kinds of things. And we have this incredible IS department that is just like working night and day to supporting teachers, educational assistants, students, administrators, families. Like, it's unbelievable what they're doing, and we're so lucky, and I know that not everyone has that, and so we're very fortunate that way. So that was the next thing. Do you have access to the technology? Do we need printed resources of some kind? What do we need in order, like, what do you need is the question. How can we get you going, kind of thing. From there, it's, going over sort of the weekly expectations and daily expectations that I might have, and is it a good fit? The conversations have focused on literacy and numeracy. So, for example, in grade 7 and 8, I set some general goals out in our Monday meeting of what to do for the week and what would be expected daily. Then my conversation with them revolves around, think about what life is really like for you. Do you think it's doable? Is this manageable? Do we need to adjust? You love math. Do you want to have a little bit more math? Does that make sense for you? Both your parents are out of the house working in essential services. You're really on your own. Do you need an extra one-to-one meeting with me? Do we want to try and set you up with someone else to meet with you? How can we build you into a group to collaborate with other kids so that you're not an island on your own, perhaps, right? So all of those details and all of those things coming out in that first meeting. But what did I notice? I noticed that first week, the first meetings, kids were like, oh, yes, Miss AG, yes, Miss AG. Oh, yeah, that's no problem. I can do that. I got this. I'm good. So go into the second week, and they've actually made a good effort to attempt the things that I've set out for them. And then it had changed, right? So format still stayed the same, with beginning with the well-being, and that's going to stay consistent no matter where we are. Is like, that's number one. How are you doing mentally? How are you doing physically? What do you need in that regard, right? Like, that's number one for sure. Tech now is becoming less that piece of it. Most kids are set up. Everything's in a routine. We're not really introducing a lot of new tools at this point, whereas in the beginning it was constantly new, lots of different things and ways of operating, but we're set now in our routines. So by the second week, that question was pretty minimal. It was, we could skim over it, check in. One thing I introduced in the second week that I did talk about in that section was assignments in teams. And I wanted to make sure that all the kids knew where to go, where to find them. And then I just did an on-the-spot, share my screen, show them. Teams video chat is awesome for that. So that was amazing. The next thing was literacy, numeracy again. And then this is where it started to come out a little bit. Like, oh, Miss AG, like, I'm having a hard time because I have 2 younger siblings and I'm responsible for them, and I'm trying to help them with their schoolwork, and I'm trying to do my schoolwork, and I'm just feeling like I'm having a rough time getting it all done. So then we adjusted the goal to substantially less and said, see how that goes next week, and I'm here for you anytime as well, right? So and then I had other kids that said, I need more because I'm kind of bored at home. I love to read. I want to spend more time reading every single day, and I'm flying through books. And so there you go. You can have more. I had some other students that were just having a lot of trouble getting organized and figuring out what to do every day, and I give the kids a lot of choice, and I give them a lot of openness, and I set them up for the week. Well, that's hard for some students. So, for a few kids, it was a daily checklist of like, okay, well, Monday, focus on this. And we worked it out together, and then involving their families and their parents to say, here's what we came to agreement on. And then checking in, because of course it ebbs and flows, and it's flexible, and it changes all the time. Now week 3 is finished, and And what I've noticed is this week we're able to set some really specific goals in regard to reading, in regard to numeracy. Our conferences are really focused on, for example, I give a weekly math journal that's really about making thinking visible, providing your mathematical reasoning, has multiple entry points so it meets the needs of all the students. And we go through that together, and they can explain it to me together, and it's helping me to be able to better observe their processes and hear their processes than if they were just handing in products to me, which is something I was struggling with before. And so this is providing me that opportunity to do some really valuable assessment and really get a sense of where kids are at. The other thing that I've noticed is that I can do reading conferences now because I have that 15 minutes blocked off, and the logistical stuff is it's minimal now, and kids are showing up to the meetings. Like, I'm not having to send reminders. They're in the meeting waiting for me. So I'm in a meeting, jump into the next one, students are there, and our time is really used well. So these meetings are really proving to be very effective. I'm really getting a sense of where students are at, whether they need those personalized plans of like every day of the week, here's something to focus on. Do they need extra one-on-ones with me? I'm getting a sense of them as readers as they're telling me about the books that they're reading, and I'm able to ask comprehension questions. I'm getting a sense of who they are as mathematicians as they're going through their math journal with me and explaining how they're going to jump in and how they're going to start in that math journal and talking through it with me. I can't say enough about these one-to-one meetings. I am finding that this is the most supportive way and the most effective way to move learning forward. I do put up lessons, I do put up videos, I do have class meetings, but the class meetings are all revolving around discussion around the assignments so that we can be collaborative and use discussion, because as we know, learning is social, and sitting alone, doing your work as a 13-year-old is not ideal, right? Like, it's not, we know that is not the way that we learn best. So I'm working really hard, as are my colleagues, to try and embed some of the powerful things that we know move learning forward, and one-to-ones seem to be making that difference. I don't know if there's anything else that I want to add to that. I'm really liking this. One thing I do want to say, so I did talk to a few of my senior year's colleagues, and for me as a grade 7-8 teacher, I have 25 students. But my colleagues who might teach senior year's English or any other senior year's course, they have maybe well over 100 students. So it's not realistic for them to do one-to-ones every week with all their kids. They would, there would be no time left in the day to be able to do any, whole class teaching or class meetings or team meetings or planning in general, So, some of the things that we did talk about with my senior year's colleagues is, some of them were doing like some quick check-ins, like 5-minute phone calls, just to, say, hey, I'm thinking about you and I want to maintain that connection, which I thought was really awesome and fantastic. And then others were, focusing in on their English language learners, for example, because they know that they need more face time, more conversation time. They might need more verbal explanations and question and answer time about assignments and things that need to be done. And so people were intrigued by the one-to-one, but trying to figure out how that could work for them. And so if you're a senior year's teacher, how do you think something like this could work for you? Small groups or, targeted one-to-ones? What might be something that can work. And if you're a middle years teacher like me, have you taken on this approach and is it working for you? My daughter's in grade 1 and her teacher's running small groups through Microsoft Teams, small reading groups, and she's done one-to-ones as well, and she spent half hour with my daughter on a one-to-one last week, and I just thought that was amazing, and the difference it made for my child to be engaged in what she was learning, and I'm so grateful for her. And you know, my daughter goes to a French immersion school, and so that conversation in French with her teacher was so valuable. And so this has been a long video, but I have lots to say about one-to-ones. This approach is really, really making a difference for my students, and it allows me to be sensitive to the needs of the families. It allows me to change things as we go and be very flexible and adaptive and supportive and responsive. And so I feel like I'm doing a good job with that, and it's one of the things that's keeping me going through this tricky time that we're in. And so I love your feedback, and I look forward to hearing from you.